Hi, and welcome to the Extended Disc webinar. Today we're going to be talking about creative interactive disc workshops and coaching sessions. My name is Christina, and I'm here with Wilma today, and we are senior trainers at Extended Disc, and I'm sure some of you have spoken with us. And again, today we're just going to talk about building onto your own workshops and coaching sessions, how to make them much more interactive. We will be recording this and we'll be posting it on our VIP site today. Unfortunately, because it's so packed, we probably won't be able to get to your questions. So we will have contact information at the end. Feel free to give us a call or send us an email. So I'm going to let Wilma get us started.
Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Wilma, and we're going to talk about how to get these interactive disc workshops and coaching sessions going. So I'm sure you've all familiar with extended disc, and whenever Christina and I do an extended disc session, we focus on the 4 steps to effective communication. So whether I'm doing one-on-one coaching or I have a whole group, this could easily be my agenda for the day. Step 1, I want you to understand the disc styles. That means understand what a D, what an I, what an S, and what a C look like. The second step, become more self-aware. That happens primarily through the report and really some self-reflection, but it also, the self-awareness piece comes through the sessions that you're holding with your participants. The third step, identifying the styles of others. We use the acronym OR. We observe behavior, we assess, and we recognize. And then step 4, which Christina and I would say is the most important step, and that is when your style is not working, modify your own behavior to improve those interactions and communications.
Ultimate goal of communication.
Okay, so we have our VIP client resource website. And before we get into talking about workshops and coaching sessions, I would tell you this is like your best friend. Christina, really, this is her baby, and she manages it, and she does an excellent job of keeping it up to date and relevant. So one of the things, you need a username and a password. If you use extended disc assessments, you have access to this.
So just so you know, VIP sites, the reason why we're kind of upfront talking about it is we're going to be talking about exercises and activities today. And all of it will be covered on our VIP site. You can go back and look for those same exercises. And on top of that, we actually will have even more. And we constantly update these exercises. So that's why we ask you to check out our VIP site.
So to be a great facilitator, to really have that looking good on, you really have to be on top of the fundamentals. The VIP site, there are all kinds of additional information you can read and learn about. So when we get to step 1 of our, of 4 steps to effective communication, we talk about understanding the disc styles. If I'm running a session, or if Christina's running the session, there are 5 key areas that we want you to know about each quadrant. Number 1, up here in the right-hand quadrant, you see the diamond. You can see the axis points, and this is for D. Identify task-oriented or active. D's want to control task and things. So the first thing is you need to know what the axis, at the end of the axis points are for each quadrant.
And for those of us that are in the era of needing reading glasses, it's so tiny. Just so you know, what she's referring to is the top half of the diamond. It says task-oriented styles. And on the right side of the diamond, those are your active-oriented styles.
Okay, the next 4 things is we want your participants to know some attributes about the style. Then we want to know what happens to them under pressure. This is a an important part because it reveals, quite often helps us identify that style, what the style's fear is, and then an example of that style, like a real person in their world that represents that style. So in case your mind ever goes blank, you can get pulled back in by saying, oh, right, John, he's my D style. And it'll just, jog your memory. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about today, when Christina and I plan a workshop, we really want to make sure that we address the different learning styles that would be in our group. So, I happen to be more of a learner by doer. Christina, what kind of learner are you?
I'm a visual learner.
Yes, and then we also have the auditory learners, and then those learners that like that, reading, writing piece. That's one thing that you really need to consider. What activities will you pull together that covers all your bases? Now, up here, we have a couple of pictures of some YouTube videos that we have utilized. At the end of each, each quadrant, once you've gone through those 5 steps, I show a video that highlights that person's behavioral style, and then we talk about it. So,
she's not just talking about, it's not like a lengthy video. It could be like seconds or a couple minutes. For instance, my favorite, of course, if you guys have ever heard of The Big Bang Theory, it's a sitcom. My C style is Sheldon Cooper. He is the over-the-top stereotypical C style. And what we're just trying to do is visually drive home the information about the different styles. So these are some different videos that we have pulled from YouTube. And I feel like I'm a commercial for YouTube right now, but that's where we got ours from.
Yeah, and the other, so that's a good one there. Okay. Now, this is another game that we would use to help reinforce D, I, S, and C. But more importantly, I would say it's a facilitator's tool. We call this game Choose and Defend. The idea of it is for you to have your participants choose a person, place, or thing that represents that quadrant for them. The real interesting part that you will need to be listening to is how they support their choice. So Christina and I are going to play this game, kind of show you in action how that works. So D, Christina. And of course, she's played this game all kinds of times. I'm setting her up. Christina, what did you choose, or who, or person, place, or thing did you choose for your D style?
I chose this, I went with the thing. I'm just trying to branch out my options here. So I chose the Mercedes-Benz 6 Series.
And why is the Mercedes-Benz a 6 Series represent the D style for you?
It's large and in charge kind of car. It's the I'm here, listen to me kind of car.
Okay, so she did a great job. She used language that we had utilized in our workshop to support D. Now I'm going to set her up, and I'm going to ask her to not support it correctly. So, Christina, tell me why that Mercedes-Benz is a D style for you.
Oh, okay. I think the Mercedes-Benz is a D style because it's very systematic and cautious and careful and thorough.
Ah, okay. So you heard that all the words that she just chose would actually probably better support a C style. So rather than me make her wrong, I might say, oh, do you mean as well that you like that Mercedes-Benz as your D because it's demanding, it's dominating, it controls the road, it's very tough, decisive.
Oh, yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we'll self-correct. Our point is you don't want to make your participants wrong to make yourself right. You can get them back on track by just summarizing some of the language that you would utilize to support that quadrant. But more importantly, this is going to be a bit of a litmus test for you to see where they're at. And perhaps you might have to spend a little bit more time on D, I, S, and C or not. Okay. Another reinforcement tool that we would use is our play and learn card games. I really like these because they fit into my suitcase easily. And when I'm traveling for a session, I like to travel light, and this works for me. So there are four decks of cards. Each deck of cards represents a different game.
And what's great about it is they're actually 52 card playing packs. So if you ever get bored, you can actually play solitaire.
Exactly. Okay, so the blue and the green deck of cards, the game is fairly similar. On the outside of the card, there would be a word. I could use this, say if I was working with a group of people, I might call the word out. So Christina, I'm going to actually call the word out, and I want you to put it, tell me what quadrant to put that, or what pile to put that card in.
Sounds good.
Demanding.
D.
Trustworthy.
S.
Witty.
I.
Systematic.
C.
Daring.
D.
Charismatic.
I.
Reliable.
F.
Thorough.
C.
Okay, so she's very good at the game. She got every single solitary one correct. But if you didn't get it correct, the cards will tell you, because what happens is all the suits line up. All the clubs, the hearts, the diamonds, and the spades. If a suit is in the wrong pile, we just redirect our participant to say, oh, where does this one go? And redirect them.
I think we might talk about this later, but these card games are great as individual activities as well as group activities, right?
That's right. So say you were doing just a one-on-one coaching session, you could send your participant home with a deck of cards, as long as they brought them back, and or do that right in front of you as a reinforcement tool, so that they really get the hang of that. Remember, say you had a smaller group, say of like 6 to 8 people. You could do a small group session, like give 4 people the green deck and 4 people the blue deck, and work as a team to get them in piles. I always say, if we haven't covered that area yet, put a pass pile down, and we'll get to that by the end of the sessions.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we're on step 2. Step 2 is all about becoming more self-aware. When we're working with our groups, self-awareness is a critical part. We say the most successful people that we work with are people that are self-aware. They have a good idea of how they show up, but more importantly, they recognize when their style is not working for them, and they try something else. So the self-awareness piece with extended disc will happen partially through your session, but more specifically when you do a deep dive with your report. Now, this report contains a lot of information. I would say I have favorite sections.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have go-to sections in this report.
That's a nice way to word it, go-to sections. So we believe what's important is that you teach your participants how to read and interpret the report. It's that classic, teach them to fish, don't give them the fish. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to debrief, in terms of order, in terms of what sections you're going to do. You're going to figure out what works for you. But one of the important things I think you need to recognize is there are worksheets either throughout the report or at the back of the reading sections. We strongly encourage people to fill those out. That helps with some self-reflection, and that really helps your people do that deep dive on the reports. Remember, we want them to check out, does this sound like them? Really? Maybe they need to get a little feedback.
Exactly. And, also when you're doing those action-oriented parts of the report, it starts to pull it back into your work setting. How do I put it back in my real life?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, after reviewing DIS and C, I often ask people, what do you think your dominant style is, or the quadrant that your style sits in? And I have them come up and write their name on this flip chart paper. Now, maybe you don't have the flip chart paper. That's fine. You could draw the 4 quadrants, 2-axis model revealing the 4 quadrants, and have them come up and write their name down. Once they get their report, what I often do is I say, okay, would anybody like to come back to this chart paper and write where they did show up? Quite often, it's revealing that what we think our dominant style is may not be. And again, a little bit of that self-awareness piece, as a work in action.
Yeah, a lot of times, this is just a quick activity you can put up right when you've covered, what DISC is, how to identify, at the break, come up, put your initials, put a dot, whatever you recognize before you get your report. And sometimes you have that aha moment where I feel I am or who I think I am is not necessarily who I truly am, what reflects itself in the report itself.
Yeah. Okay. Step 3. So it's okay. You know who you are, and you understand the model. The step 3 is, how do we identify the styles of others? Now, there is numerous ways to teach your participants this.
One way that we like to do it is in our step 3, you'll see that we talked about the OR acronym. It stands for observe, assess, and recognize. And though it seems kind of daunting, it's a very easy acronym to remember and to actually use.
And with that, when we're using our senses, mostly we're seeing and we're listening. Another way that we can do it is actually looking at the diamond and asking, is the person more task-oriented? That's the top half of the diamond, or more people-oriented? Are they more on the right-hand side, which is more active, using intuition, or on the left-hand side, more reserved, using those 5 senses? A little point here we really always reinforce about identifying styles is that, remember, nobody lives in a vacuum. C's and D's choose task first, but they're working with people. S and I's choose people first, but I promise you, they're getting tasks done.
Great point, Wilma.
Another thing that I like to do is I run a little mini reel in my head when I meet someone, and I think, which of these statements best fits? So I might say, D, is it done, and am I great? I, is it fun, and do you like me? S, is it safe, and will you support me? C, is it correct? Now, there's numerous other ways that you can identify styles, but these are 3 primary ones that we use.
Yeah, very quick activities, and just to know and reinforce with your clients and participants how easy it is to learn and identify the main DISC styles.
Okay, behavior recognition practices.
One of the reasons why we like behavior recognition practices, whether we're doing a one-on-one virtual or whether we're doing it in a group session, is there's no setup involved. And it's a great reinforcement and check-in. Did they really understand what DISC and how to identify DISC styles is? And how it works is we have some scenarios, and we have them already for you. You don't even have to create your own, or you can edit them however you want. But here's a scenario. I'll read it out loud to the whole group, and I'll say, okay, tell me, based on what I just read, what you think Beth's main DISC style is.
One of the things that happens in behavioral recognition practices, the language. Remember, most people are not 100% one style. Most of us are blended styles. So some of the behavioral recognition practices, they may see a primary style, which is what we're focusing on here, but they also say, yeah, but I see a little bit of this as well. That's okay. And I think that it also keeps it interesting. We're thinking, how does Beth show up for us?
Yeah, because a lot of times, they'll say they will recognize what Beth's main style is, but they do see other things that are contained in the paragraph itself, and that's okay. It goes back to what we talked earlier about. Can they support their rationale, their reasoning for identifying additional styles?
And a little plug for the VIP site. Christina does a really great job of keeping lots of behavioral recognition practices
you for this today?
going. But I know this because I get feedback on people using the site. But there's lots of ones, so you can always freshen up your deck. Maybe you have 4 that you're using, and you've used them, and you're getting tired of them. Go back into the VIP site and pull 4 more up so that it stays fresh and the conversation stays fresh for you.
Great. Recognition practices. Use them often, and they're easy to use.
Okay. Now, this is an exercise. It's called Your Personal Examples. And quite often when I'm working with a larger group, I would use this exercise more as a mental exercise. So I start off with asking people to think of a person that matches up to a particular predominant style, D, I, S, and C. Then I ask them, right off the bat, I would like you to note, I always make sure I say, please do not include your spouse, because that opposites attract language, and it kind of blows my punchline at the end if it doesn't work. So I always say exclude your spouse on this one. But get those 4 down, and then I ask, who do you find the easiest to communicate with and why? And who do you find the most challenging to communicate with and why? Basically, the response is, I generally find it easier to communicate with styles that are similar to my own. I often find it more challenging to communicate with styles that are opposite to mine because I need to use a bit more energy. Now, remember, this does not mean that we don't communicate well with opposite styles. What it reflects is sometimes we need to use a little energy when we are addressing our communication style with an opposite.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Wilma said, this is one of my favorite exercises because, again, it has so many ways in which you can use it. You can do it as a mental exercise, as Wilma said. Sometimes I like to do it as homework or kind of the last thing that people think about when they're going back to their workplace. Start thinking about 4 people who you identify with and think about what exactly within that interaction is it easy for me to communicate with this person versus what is it in this interaction that I find so challenging to interact with this person.
One of the things as coaches and facilitators, we want to make sure that we have some way to keep your DISC workshop live later on. In other words, something that they're working on as opposed to, this was a really great workshop and then nothing. This is a great exercise to send them home with.
Yep.
Okay, step 4. And as I've said earlier, Christina and I would tell you the most important step, adjusting your style. So that means when your style is not working, try something else. The adjustment could be for a minute, for longer than that. We're not asking you not to be authentic. We're saying recognize when you need to try something else. Now, you will be able to coach your participants on all kinds of adjustments. We'd like to leave you with a thought that we always make sure our people understand, and that's kind of an adjustment that they can apply when they're speaking or communicating with someone and they recognize it is not working. We want to employ the platinum rule, and that platinum rule is treat others the way they want or need to be treated. This is a subtle but significant shift from the golden rule. It really puts the other person's needs and wishes at the forefront. And this way, if that person, works fast, you might want to match and mirror, work fast. If they want to talk about their weekend, maybe you might ask them. The point is it gets outside of your own behavior and responds to how this person prefers the communication to go.
Exactly. So if I know someone, like for instance, I know most likely they're a dominant D style, might not want to spend too much time getting emotional and chatting. Get right to the executive summary, those bullet points, get to the bottom line. That way, that style now is much more engaged because I'm speaking their language.
Right. And that platinum rule, we want to make sure, we can move on. The platinum rule, we can help people get it into an exercise. This communication strategy worksheet, I would tell you, I probably use on every one of my training sessions. I ask the participants to pick a person that they interact with often. So the first part of the strategy worksheet, you have to identify what that style is. Then it encourages you to write down 3 things you're going to do more of and 3 things you're going to do less of. So I always say, if we want to name the game for success, you need to own the results. One of the things that we like to do is to get technology involved with this. At this point, we get people to get their phones out, put a reminder in the phones. Are you exercising the platinum rule? Did you do what you say you were going to do or not do? And have that come up on their phone to keep it alive many, many days after your workshop. Okay, this is an exercise that I find particularly poignant. We are often in these workshops and you'll hear the refrain, I just can't work with whatever style. This is an exercise that we can kind of get the focus off of the negative parts of that, what that style might bring to our life, and maybe develop a little bit more of an attitude of gratitude. So what we do is we have the person identify, a specific person or style that is challenging for them, and then to move forward and write a thank you letter. Could highlight contributions the other person makes, maybe tasks and responsibilities that the other person takes care of, maybe what the other person, how they make the author's life better. And if there's anything you're going to start doing or stop doing in the future to enhance that relationship. I then ask if anybody might like to share their letter. Remember, do not ask or force anybody to read the letter, because the person they're writing about might be in the workshop. So often we hear these letters and they're generally fairly heartfelt. And it begs the question, wouldn't you like that person to hear that appreciation? And usually they say, yes, I think they would enjoy that. You can get some tongue-in-cheek letters that are okay, but most people then start to shift a little bit in, rather than focusing on what is wrong, they start to focus on really how the person helps them.
Okay, let's talk just quickly about the game card and role playing. Again, we're talking about those 4 decks of cards that Extended Disc play and learn game. You have on the left, you have cards that have a disc style on it. So it will be DIS or C. On the right, you have different scenarios in which you act out based on the style card you're given. What makes it more usable and more memorable, I would say, is if you happen to know the style of the participants, give them their opposite style, kind of push them and make them stretch in terms of thinking, how do I role play this particular scenario?
I guess just to add on that, what the takeaway we find mostly is, given the opposite style, we see that adjustments are possible. They take energy and they take focus. But with that, we can adjust our communication strategy. You will find that I would ask for volunteers as opposed to make eye contact. Not every style loves role playing, but it's really worth the effort that it takes to get that going, because everyone has an aha moment that this is possible, but I need to focus and use some energy.
And you will get quite a few laughs from this one.
Yes. Okay. We want to do an exercise, a team building exercise that works for a large group. We have this one game that we call Spaghetti Towers. It's build the tallest structure. Remember, it's not the highest structure, it's the tallest structure, because your clever engineers will start building from the ceiling down. The materials that you require are very inexpensive. It's just some spaghetti and marshmallows. We actually use both sides of marshmallows to make it interesting. We have a time limit of 25 minutes. And then once that is done, they have 1 minute for evaluation. Only the materials provided can be used. We also add a paper and a pencil for any prototyping. What is good about this game is it forces collaboration. As the time goes through, we call out the time used up or the time available just to add pressure. And the really interesting part of this whole game is not the building the towers, although that is fun and creative. It's the dialogue afterwards. We want to find out, did you prove your style right? Did you adjust? How did that show up? Did you deconstruct your tower halfway through? Because we know when we're in project development, sometimes that does happen and it takes a big decision. The nice thing too is we start to recognize how we interact with each other, and the analysis afterwards is the important part.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is we do very simplistic instructions, and we add the time pressure to you because we know that under pressure we do tend to reveal our natural style the most. Another suggestion is don't copy this particular structure that you see on the screen because I guarantee you it didn't stand up. All right, so thank you all. Again, my name is Christina. I'm here with Wilma. We're senior trainers at Extended Disc. I'd like to invite you to our VIP site. We're going to post this webinar also along with the PowerPoint so that if you have the opportunity, you want to go back and review or share it with any of your affiliates, please do so. I apologize again, we weren't able to answer questions because it's so packed. You have our contact information. Feel free to contact us, and we do have an upcoming webinar scheduled for May. We don't have an exact date, so look for information. We'll be sending that out very soon, and we'll be focusing on disc styles and managing stress. And we have some exciting reveals that we'll be doing with that. So thank you guys again for joining us. We really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, and we wish you well in your development of your workshops. We're here to help. May the force be with you.
Bye.
Bye now.